Okay, I believe we're live. Can you guys hear me?
Hello.
Perfect. Ariel, are you there or are we still waiting on you? Okay, I think I was gonna say we'll give it a few more minutes because I know a few people are looking to join, but
Yeah.
I think we're just gonna fire away.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
perfect. So, man, just a quick introduction. I have Tadros on the panel here with me, and
Hello.
Ariel as well is here, but he's having some tech issues. And I have a few more people looking to join, but no one's here at the moment. So we can just fire away. I mean, I do want to kind of wait a little bit just for the guys so we can kind of, move at the same pace. But I think we're just going to go.
Yeah.
Franklin Gaming is maybe on his way. And okay, hold on.
Oh shit.
Okay, we got Falcon coming up soon. But right, let's just get right into it. And then as the guys come through, we'll just we'll fire away. Tadros, I'm coming at you
Yes.
first. Seeing as you're the only one here, the only one who remained consistent for me. Just a real quick one then. So Mass Effect, I'm pretty sure you saw the trailer for the new game, correct?
Yes.
Sorry, the tidbit,
The teaser, right?
the teaser, right? So when you saw that, did it change your opinion on anything in relation to what you expect from the new game, time wise, anyway?
Time wise, no. I thought at first like yeah, there's gonna be a big chunk of time skip probably, and it's like, and maybe Shepard coming back because people will want that, even though I don't. But you know. But then the people said apparently there were tweets as well as like confirmations that Andromeda is going to be connected to Mass Effect, which this is the one that actually changed my view, my expectations. Like, okay, so this is going to be a large time skip because at least it's 600 years since like Andromeda, the time between Andromeda and Mass Effect 3. So like,
Yeah, and I
I'm a
think
big
it's
fan.
so personally for me, when I actually saw the whole trailer, I didn't really look too much I didn't look deep into it. I wasn't that interested per se, because I already had an idea of what I felt Mass Effect was gonna go. The only thing that really mattered to me was the fact that Leia was a lot older, so it kind of allowed me to, okay, fine. So we're thinking maybe 400 to whatever years has passed, but it didn't really change the story elements for me because I know we spoke about this already, but for me, where Mass Effect 4 or 5 is going, or where I think it needs to be going, is it needs to kind of focus on the fact that after the Reaper invasion. Okay, so first of all, let's establish one thing: are we red, blue, or green?
I'd say red. Like,
Yeah,
it's
so
very hard to work on the rest of the endings.
so we're in agreement on that. I do think you could do blue. I think the only one we're gonna
Yeah,
I think the only one we're gonna push aside is pretty much green. I think everyone more or less
green and
accepts that.
refusal.
Yes, refusal is probably the one that's definitely not gonna be there. But when you have a situation with red, I think the main thing for me is how does that play out into the story. So Mass Effect has always been, when it deals with the smaller stories, small scale stuff, I think that's when the meanings come into play. So the Reaper story itself is not that important to me. It's not an amazing story. It's how you interact with the Genophage. It's how you deal with the Quarians. I think these are the strengths of the game. So for me, the best thing is basically how do they deal with a situation where we have millions upon millions of all these races trapped in certain ecosystems, in certain solar systems. So let's look at Earth, for example, right?
Yeah.
How how do the Quarians, the Turians, every other race that's trapped in that solar system, yes, in that solar system, how do they navigate? How do the humans interact and deal with them? Is it a situation where a group like Cerberus starts to gain more support? Because now on Earth we have, it's not just humans now it's everybody. So that's my main focus, and that's why I think the game is going to go ultimately. Not just on Earth, but a focus on, okay, we might get to the position, a position where we've passed that, but it's how those stories play out and how we're affected by that. I think that's ultimately where I'm actually looking for. That's ultimately what I'm actually looking forward to the most.
Yeah, I think I would be very interested in this, but I think the predominant issues like this potentially high, very long time skip. This is 600 years, so like that's like 6 generations to like other species besides Asari. Asari are the only ones who would be like, hey, I remember that time. You humans were assholes, or you humans were great, or whatever. Well, like the rest are like, I don't even remember. I don't even know what happened. What the hell happened? So like, I would definitely. I think it could be like treated as a history. It's like, oh, this is how, say, the new Cerberus got formed. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a real good shout out.
Yeah.
Andromeda can still be around on dark energy, making it collide with the Milky Way faster. That's from Anthony. No, that's true. That's true. Mm-hmm. I do think Andromeda can still be around, but I think we're kind of skipping scenes there, Anthony. We'll kind of we'll get to the Andromeda part in a second. But Furkan is in the chat, correct? Furkan, can you hear me? Man, we're dealing with some tech issues today, aren't we?
Everyone. I'm the only guy here.
For me, it's okay. I think you can hear me.
Oh yes.
Yeah, but you guys are quite... Okay, perfect.
I can hear Ariel fine, actually.
Okay, Furkan is in the... Furkan, when you can talk, just let me know. So, Ariel, what we were going across is... So, basically... Sorry, Furkan is telling me he has audio issues. Okay, perfect. Ariel, what we were talking about is basically the teaser for Mass Effect 4 or 5, whichever you want to call it, and where the game is ultimately going to go. I have my thoughts. I just kind of laid them out there a little bit. What are your thoughts exactly on the situation? Where do you envision this game going?
Yeah, so like I said, on the trailer we can see Liara, and so she's here, and we already saw the Andromeda galaxy, and we can assume that there will be a fast forward of 600 years, maybe. Shepard won't be here, and maybe other races will be there. So maybe I think the new races from Andromeda will be there.
Everyone just jump into Andromeda straight away. That's way in the show, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so ultimately I think the main thing is that we can't envision a particular new villain per se. I don't think that's anyone's guess. I think when it comes to the smaller scale stories, that's something we can probably deal with. So the next question I'll put to you guys then is, race-wise, we know Liara's there, and that's perfect. I'm perfectly fine with that. Are we in a situation where we think more of the old squad is going to turn up, and is that going to be an issue?
I'd say very...
I'm gonna pass this one to you.
I'd say very doubtful. If it's 600 years, it wouldn't make, like, for example, why would Tali or Garrus or Ashley or any of those characters say theoretically goes in a cryostasis for 600 years? It's like, I don't think that would make sense. It's like basically the only characters who'd be alive are Grunt, maybe Rex, depending on your choices on either Vermeer or Mass Effect 3. Who else? Samara's old. I think she'd be dead from old age. Like I think she's 800 or 900. I think that's it. I think you'd have like Liara, maybe Grunt, maybe Rex, but Liara's the only one who's like guaranteed to be alive because she's completely unkillable throughout the.
But do we want a
show.
situation though where we actually want more characters? So one of the main arguments I made about this was we need new characters to shine, and if we're if we're too busy talking to Liara or Garrus or whoever who it may be, we're at the situation where we don't give the new characters new time. So I think ultimately for me, just Liara showing up is fine. It's okay. I think anything else more than that, kind of, I think we're rehashing it a little bit. So I think we just kind of need to move forward.
With the time skip, I'd agree with you. If the time skip is much shorter, like say a couple decades, I would say do it like Mass Effect 2, where like you only have a couple of the old characters, but the majority is new characters. You know, like Mass Effect 2, you had Tali and Garrus. I don't think there's anyone else who's like who's from the old crew you can recruit to the suicide mission. But like after that, say you have all these new characters like in Mass Effect 2, like Jack, Miranda, Jacob, all these characters. So I think like you could work it out. It's not that hard in terms of like making new characters shine. It's like you just don't add too many of the old cast, say as squad members or even just people you talk to constantly, and like just add a few. Add maybe the essentials like I'd say Tali because the whole Quarian thing, and I don't think you can add Rex as a squad mate. Rex is busy being the leader. Garrus maybe, but yeah, like these just don't add.
Yeah, to be honest, I think you make a good point there in relation to Mass Effect 2. I don't think we need to go too far into adding all these new characters, and I think you can make it work. The question is, should you? And I would be of the opinion of no. I think having Liara just there's enough. Now you might be able to maybe get away with certain other characters, for example, but I don't think they should be squad mates. I think this is a situation where you meet up with these characters for whatever reason. Maybe it might be a particular mission, and then you just leave it as that. You carry out one mission or two, and then that's the end of that story arc. But yeah, I think that makes sense to me, and I think it might make sense to a lot of people too. But Anthony keeps coming through and he keeps talking about Mass Effect Andromeda, so let's just get right into that. We'll fire away with Mass Effect Andromeda. First of all, I do like Mass Effect Andromeda. I think it's a good game. I just don't really think it didn't do what I wanted for Mass Effect to do. I love the stories in Mass Effect, and I couldn't really, I don't know how to put it. I couldn't gel. I didn't really understand. I didn't care about the characters in Mass Effect Andromeda. I think that's the best way to put it. Ultimately, I didn't really care about any single one of them. Now, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, obviously because we played the trilogy, or most of us played most of it anyway, I think it's not a fair comparison to compare certain squad mates in Mass Effect Andromeda to Garrus, for example, or Miranda, because these characters got to develop over these 3 games. I will still say this: while it's not fair, it didn't reach the heights it was supposed to for me. Mass Effect Andromeda is probably the only game. It's the only game that I was looking forward to that much. That I didn't care if there was bugs or whatever. My mind just said, just drop it and patch it later. I want the stories. I want the characters. I want to feel immersed in this universe again. I felt nothing. I felt completely nothing when that game released. I finished it and it was just like a whimper. Like, okay, that's not to say it's a bad game, but ultimately it's to say it didn't feel like a Mass Effect game to me. It felt completely different. But Tadros, what's your take on Mass Effect?
I'll say that no, I'm on the position that Mass Effect Andromeda is bad story wise because of like how the plot is treated. Oh, hello. And like the whole
Franklin,
issue is.
Sorry, Tadros, just real quick. Franklin, you there, right?
No.
Franklin, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry, I can hear you now. I was putting audio in. So.
Oh, perfect.
Great.
I'll introduce you real quick to the guys who's on the panel and also anyone on the chat. I don't know if you guys know Franklin, but he did this Mass Effect theory video. What's it called again, Franklin?
I think I don't remember the exact name. I think like the dark matter theory. I want to say. I need to look.
The
up
dark
again.
matter theory, exactly. And I came across it I don't know, months ago, around the same time I dropped mine, and I was completely blown away by the ideas. And I think me and him are on something similar here. In the
Dark
fact that,
space theory, yeah.
I'm very concerned with what happens with with the details of actually the characters and how everybody deals with the whole Reaper invasion. Can you tell us about your theory a little bit before we move on to Andromeda?
Yeah, nice to see you guys too. Good to see you again today. Yeah, basically a while back I made a video kind of talking about like maybe some cool theories, potentially Mass Effect 4 or 5, whatever you want to call it, would be about. My main ideas were kind of just centering around, I'm sure maybe you guys have touched on it a little bit, but the idea of kind of dark matter in the Mass Effect universe, they touched on it a little bit in Mass Effect 2, and really the main theme was kind of that if we're going into a new, let's say, Mass Effect trilogy or just a new game, I think what made the original game so good was kind of that bigger threat in the galaxy, that being the Reapers and this giant kind of something bigger than yourself. And I think the best way they could do that in the future would just be something like maybe this whole time, right, that the Reapers were, harvesting organic life, et cetera, et cetera. What was really happening was there was a bigger threat in the galaxy, kind of, and in this theory, right, it would be dark matter, and there was a bigger threat that was going on the whole time. So essentially, that kind of leads into a new trilogy, right, that would have the same kind of themes as the original, where you have these like impending threat, this doom, right, where Reapers, and that would kind of transition into maybe dark matter, and maybe the Reapers the entire time were trying to actually save the universe as opposed to kill everyone, right? So yeah, and we can dig more into that too as well, and I'm sure you guys have your own theories, but that's like the big high picture of what the video was about.
Yeah, I think the dark matter, it's one that I've come across it a few times, and I really did like the idea of it. Maybe my issue was I was thinking it might be too complicated for some people. I think the whole idea of just the Reapers are trying to take out organics or whatever it may be, harvest them, because we're trying to stop you guys from killing yourselves or whatever it may be. That was a very simple concept, but I really did like the dark matter theory. Tyros, have you come across that theory by any chance?
I came across that theory, yeah.
Be it the problem. Weight?
Now, because of the Star Child, it's a bit weaker, maybe, because they just told us like, we're doing this because you guys are AI and organics are fighting each other. Problem is you can't really tell the child, hey, the Geth and Quarians made peace. What the hell is that about? So the kid is like, oh no, I don't care. AI bad. Cockroach robot gopher, have fun. But I think the issue, I will say I kind of disagree with the whole like Mass Effect was like Mass Effect's predominant factor was the bigger threat, because from what I'm seeing is like when they're doing small like characters, smaller plots, you see a bigger impact in like Mass Effect 2 or Mass Effect 3. For example, if you kill the Council or kill the Arachna, those big choices, you're not seeing much of a difference. You're seeing maybe a slight change in dialogue. But when you make like small choices, like say get Talia exiled or get her innocent, it's like that changes things. When they make like bigger, when they always make the bigger impact, like keep the collector base, destroy the collector base, I don't recall any change happening. It's like, they still have the remains.
Oh, and so basically you're focusing more on the fact that Mass Effect excels in little details.
In little details, yes.
With plot,
with the major plots, it sometimes even goes downright inconsistent, especially when it comes to Mass Effect 3. Where like Mass Effect 3, you feel like you're doing errands for people while Earth is just being completely decimated. So it's like, that's a weird transitioning. It's like, hey, can you cure the genophage while humans are being consistently decimated? Hey, can you help us with the Geth while humans are being completely decimated? Can you do this side mission while humans are being decimated? So the problem is,
you seem to have a lot of issues with the story itself, but
the main plot, yeah, the main.
I know
the
you're right.
main
But Mass Effect
plot-
does have the inconsistency parts.
Yeah, Mass Effect excels so great in characters. It just doesn't do so great when it comes to like the big plot, the big threat. When it goes smaller, it's more consistent. Like when we had Saren, and we had the Reapers on the background, not necessarily on the forefront. It was, for the most part, very consistent. It functioned well. It functioned as a good plot. Oh, we don't want this big threat coming. How big is this threat? Well, we don't know, but we know it's big enough that if they come over, we're screwed. And
let me pass it to Franklin real quick on this particular one. So me, Tadros, and some of the guys were talking about what do we expect from the new game exactly. What do we think is going to happen, and how do we think it's going to play out? Now, I don't think we can basically guess who the new villain is going to be. I know this is, I said, for example, you could create a villain from a new dimension. You can talk about migrants coming from Andromeda or whatever it may be. And I think in this particular topic now, we'll get a bit more into Andromeda. But Franklin, where do you think this is ultimately going to go? Like, we see Liara there. We don't know exactly what the story is, and we don't know who's going to return. But where do you see this game going?
Yeah, I mean, for me, my guess was kind of along the same lines of where I was going. Where I would assume they're just going to have some outside threat come in that's harnessing some sort of power. In my ideas, that was dark matter, right, or whatever source that's going to be in the universe. But I don't think it necessarily matters what the threat is, because to me, kind of like you guys were talking about, my favorite part about Mass Effect actually was I love the characters, and that's what made the games great. But it was that grand sense of something being big in the universe, and especially in Mass Effect 1, it felt like something big was happening, and you were part of like a very grounded universe that had a lot of history. And I actually like that even more than just the characters. So to me, what would make like a new Mass Effect great and really propel that story is that impending sense of like you're part of something huge, like this universe has history, like there's something big is happening and you're going to be a part of it. And once again, the characters are going to be important, but I don't think it matters necessarily that the villain is this person or this race of aliens or whatever. I think it's just there needs to be that big sense of you're a part of something again, because I think that's what made the original trilogy so great. But
And we'll get to basically what Anthony in the chat has been getting to, which is Andromeda. How do we see this playing out with Andromeda? Is it gone to the point where EA and BioWare are just gonna scrap Andromeda? Say, you know what, the Kett were cool, the Gara were cool, everything about Andromeda was cool, but it was executed badly, and it left a bad taste in people's mouths. So are we going to see Andromeda in a new game in some shape or form, or is it gone to the point where it's just all forgotten? Tyrus, I'll head to you. Wait, sorry, Falcon, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, man.
Yeah.
I was in
No,
deep
don't
shock.
worry about it.
So I'll put that question to you then. How is EA, or how is BioWare going to deal with the Andromeda situation in this game? Do you expect them to implement Andromeda in some shape or form?
Well, honestly, I think it's going to be very tricky. They can definitely expand on it. Like, I can definitely see them expanding on it. It's, like you said, poorly executed, but a really good idea, With Andromeda, did we just explore a little bit of Andromeda when we had the actual game? So there's, like, a lot more to that galaxy that can also help with the dark matter theory, like a threat in the Andromeda that, poses a bigger threat and all that stuff. Honestly, based on the teaser trailer, I'm not sure how they're going to pull it off. There's just way too many hints that is going to happen in the Milky Way. Maybe something small, but I don't see it being that big.
Yeah, so basically you have this you have the opinion that there will be a nod to Andromeda in some shape or form, but they're not going to be a main feature in the game. The writers are not going to be a main I don't know how they're going to be the main feature in the game, to be honest.
Neither do I.
Yeah, go ahead. How do you see Andromeda fit into this game?
I don't know, because it would be, here's the thing, Andromeda, like them moving from the Milky Way to Andromeda is like 600-year gap. That means if they come back, like the Andromeda Initiative come back to the Milky Way, that's another 600 years. Maybe let's say another like 400 theoretically, right? That's 1,000 years. So that would mean Liara is like a old lady. She'd probably be dead. And the issue is Andromeda's plot was like just kind of flunky, especially with like how the Pathfinder works. Is like, hey, Ryder, you, the new guy who literally has no experience, guide us. You tell us where to go. Do it.
I think Andromeda's main, and I think we've spoken about this a few times, is that the problem with Andromeda basically is I think it has a lot of great ideas.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
sure.
I think the cat as a group, and what they stand for, the religious element of it, it's really good. It was just very poorly executed.
Yeah.
I don't really want to get into spoiler territory here, but I couldn't connect with them. I thought they were, maybe I don't want to say they were like human kind of villain, as opposed to the Reapers, for example. But they seemed they could be grounded. It seemed like you could actually care about them. But unfortunately, that never happened. So I thought, okay, good idea, poor execution. The Angara as well, the exact same thing. Now they did try to flesh their story out a little bit more, but ultimately it failed. It didn't hit that spot for me. How about you, Franklin? How did Andromeda hit for you?
So
yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh wait, are we both Frank or?
No. I kind of just missed it.
There can only be one.
Only one, Frank 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel free. Yeah, you can go. That was fine.
All right. Well, if I have to say my piece about Andromeda's characters, too little time and maybe external pressure. So you guys actually listen to you guys talking about the cast in Andromeda and the cast in the main games, and I actually thought about it as well. I'm pretty sure in Mass Effect 2 they added like 3-4 new characters, like the DLC ones and the Cerberus ones, and then they had the old cast from the first game. Now in Andromeda you had like 6-7 new characters, completely new, not related in any way, shape, or form to the old games and whatever. So they had not enough time to polish all of them. That's why people, in my opinion, didn't get used to them, because there's just not enough time. Too many characters, not enough time at all. So that's why I also kind of just didn't feel the whole game myself. So that would be my 2 pieces on that. But yeah, like the universe itself, the ideas were like really good. So maybe they can expand on it. I don't know.
Yeah, because I think ultimately to throw the idea of the Ket away, I think that's a shame. To throw the idea of the Angara away is another shame. But the question is, how do you link that to the Milky Way? And do you see that happening, Franklin?
Yeah, for me, I think, and kind of touched on it in my theory too, I think a good way to do it maybe would be there's some sort of external threat. So you start in the Milky Way, there's things going on there. Let's say it was the Red ending, right? So maybe they've outlawed AI and things, a lot of history there, right? But there's some sort of threat maybe in the edges of dark space. So maybe you head out there and you're kind of headed towards Andromeda, and maybe you're getting kind of signals from there and something's happening over there, and maybe the Ket with what they were working with the Scourge and everything, right? Maybe that kind of links to, let's say, dark matter if we're going down that side, right? And I guess I think the way you could do it is you kind of like just intertwine Andromeda a little in. I don't think a lot of people are talking about maybe like having the characters from Andromeda come back and things. I don't necessarily think that's a good idea. And also, I think just in general, I'd rather have a lot of new characters as opposed to bringing back. I know Liara is going to be in the game, probably, some of the Krogan and things, but I'd rather have new characters and new stories, because I think that's what made Mass Effect so great in the first place. And I think the way you link that is you just kind of leave little breadcrumbs, right? Like while you're in dark space, it's like, oh, hey, we're getting a transmission. Something happened in Andromeda, and you learn something about Andromeda that you didn't even in the game, and that somehow like ties to the story of the new games. That's how I would do it. But I don't think you need to rely on bringing all these characters in and suddenly just making Mass Effect 5, right? Just an ensemble of what we've already seen before. Because I think we already had great games before. I think it's time to move on, but it is what it is.
I will say, kind of a hot take. I'll say, like, sequel to Mass Effect, make Liara killable. Liara is the only
Damn.
unkillable
Damn.
character. I'm like, make it fair. Make it fair. All the other characters are killable. Make Liara killable too. You know, make it emotional or a hard choice, maybe.
I was
Yeah.
tempted to just remove you from the chat.
Yeah, you
but
chose death.
I
man.
am so sorry.
I decided I won't do that.
Chat's not gonna be happy.
No, I do see your point. I think it makes sense. Okay, no, I don't like that idea, but fair enough. Like, I think it should be able to happen for sure. Anthony says the only way I see Andromeda tying with the Milky Way is dark energy because of the Scourge or Remnant technology. So
Sure.
I think he's going back to this point that like Andromeda did have some really good ideas, and it would honestly be a shame if we just saw that being disposed of. So I'm of the idea that Andromeda. Okay, so when I first saw the teaser, my mind said Andromeda's gone. We're not really gonna. I mean, we're gonna get a nod to it. We're gonna get a few comments here and there, but we're not really gonna get much. After thinking about it a little bit more, I felt it just didn't make sense to get rid of all these amazing characters, all these amazing stories, all these potentially amazing stories, I should say. Sorry. So I would like a situation where the Ket somehow are linked to the Milky Way. I don't know if I'm not thinking about them being as the antagonists to the Milky Way now, but in some shape or form they show up. But then the question is, how do you incorporate the Ket? How do you incorporate the Angara? How do you incorporate the Scourge? How do you incorporate all these situations in Andromeda to the Milky Way? And I think it might get a bit too complicated for BioWare. That's the only reason why I think maybe we might forget about it.
I'd say please do. It's like
Yeah, you're not a fan at all.
I'm gonna say this. It's like, here's the thing: you already have a lot of baggage in like the aftermath of the Reaper War, right? And we already, if we're gonna connect this to Andromeda, which I would say don't make this time skip way too long. I'd rather like see how people, like how say factions react to the aftermath, how others exploit it. I'll say that's a very interesting plot. I would say even like don't make it grandiose like galaxy ending. Make it big. You could make it big, like, oh, this could like decide the fate of our very lives because of this person or like this group that's trying to change things. For example, I was thinking of this plot like someone exploiting Project Overlord. Because like, oh yeah, that thing seemed important, and then it got forgotten. I was like, it's like, yeah, Project Overlord. So say the Geth, either you destroy them or they die from the Reaper, the red ending. And if you destroy them manually without the red ending, then they're easier to control with the Project Overlord shit. So like, oh, this could be a big plot, or someone trying to undermine other factions, say the Asari, because the Asari matriarch, because Thessia fell, so a matriarch is ambitious to bring back the Asari to their former glory. I was like, yeah, so I'm like, okay, let's take a break in like say one sequel. Let's take a break from the whole galaxy ending shenanigans. I'd say add a few old characters, not all of them. Like say I'd say Liara, Tali, maybe Garrus, maybe and maybe that's it.
I don't know
The
from
rest
my
is
end,
kind
but
of-
your signal's cracking up. I'm not too sure. Can you guys
Oh,
hear
no.
me pretty well?
I can
Am
hear
I-
him pretty well, but
I can hear him all right.
Okay,
God.
that's on my end then. Sorry about that.
So,
No, you're right. I think Mass Effect should do what they do best. They should excel in the characters and the stories, and that's what I expect. But I guess that goes to the next question. Do you guys expect BioWare to pull this off in terms of character development and stories? And for Khan, I'll push that to you.
You're talking about the new characters? They're going to be able to pull this
Well,
off?
do we
or-
trust BioWare? Do you have faith that BioWare is going to deliver a good game, a Mass
Honestly-
Effect game?
Honestly, I lost faith a long while ago in many companies. Like, I barely have any faith in 2042. Like, everything looks nice about 2042 right now, but you never know what's going to happen. So I don't know exactly. Maybe. Just maybe. The teaser looked really nice. They hyped up everybody pretty well. So maybe they can pull this off. maybe EA is actually, scared of backlash this time, and they will actually try to get the good decisions going and give them enough time to make this happen.
Yeah, because I think when we think about, so here's my thing with BioWare. It's not the same guys who made Andromeda. So I know a lot of people like to say, well, it's still the same name, it's BioWare, but I do care about what team is behind it. I think that's extremely important. And even the guys who made, it's the same BioWare that made Anthem, but that's a separate title to me anyway. So when you tell me, okay, certain people are going to be involved in this, certain veterans and also a new cast, I am a bit more hopeful. I'm also hopeful because I believe EA understands, and I think I go back to Star Wars in particular. I think it was Jedi Fallen Order, was it?
I think so.
Yeah, and that's a story-driven game that did well. So I feel EA might have a different take on how Mass Effect should go. Franklin, what's your take? Are you hopeful? Do you believe that BioWare can deliver something great again, or are they washed up?
Yeah, for me, I'm definitely hopeful. I'm always hopeful. I'm an optimist. The problem I guess I see is, Casey Hudson left. There's been a lot of internal turmoil within the studio that we know about, right? But we also know that, like you said, it seems like recently EA has been doing a better job of focusing on quality and things that I guess more hardcore gamers want. I think they can do it. I think especially with what the rumors we've heard about Dragon Age, the next Dragon Age, it sounds like they're trying to get it on a good path. It sounds like they faltered a little bit and now they're kind of regrouping and trying to go in again and focus on story and RPG elements, which I think is what a lot of us here probably want. It's same for Mass Effect. So I definitely believe in them. I hope it goes well. I try not to get too hyped about anything, and then just hopefully the product's good. I know they can definitely do it though. They still have some talent there. It just depends on what the higher ups say, I guess.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. And Tadros, how about you?
I would say I'm pessimistic, or I don't have any hopes. I'd say I'm very on the fence. Okay, I'm worried from what I've heard BioWare. This potentially long time skip is worrying me, because here's the thing. I'm don't go too new, or everything is unrecognizable, but also don't go too old, or you're just relying on nostalgia, and just sometimes even becomes nonsensical. That's why I suggested do the Mass Effect 2 style, where you have a couple of the old crew, and then you have the new crew, which worked out very well. If they don't focus on major plots, which now is a good chance. I think now is a very good chance. You don't need to focus on galaxy ending plots. You could focus on slightly smaller but big enough that it's the main plot, governments, or maybe a species gets wiped out by another. These things, because I'd say BioWare is at its strongest when it's doing these stories rather than that galaxy ending story. The problem with the Ket that I noticed is that they want to make them new, but at the same time they want to make them like the Reapers. They're mysterious. Hence why one of the Ket tells you, "Hey, I'm not going to explain what you cannot comprehend." And I'm like, it's not that hard though. You kind of look like a monkey too. I don't know. Oh boy. It's yeah, that's the problem. They're mixing. It's oh, do we do the Ket as mysterious beings that have something grandiose, or do we do them as the species that tries to convert every other species into them? And
you see, I don't even think them trying to be new was the issue per se, because it is a new team. So I expect them to almost try all these new things. I think ultimately Andromeda should have been a good game. I don't necessarily blame EA 100%. I feel the team messed up. So for example, one of the things we know is that they were working on this open galaxy system with procedurally generated planets. And the fact that got scrapped, I think 2 or 3 years in, that's so much time being wasted. So if you were to probably ask a developer, someone who was actually involved in the game, they'll tell you that game is a miracle. That the fact that they managed to put that together in the amount of time that they did is actually a great game. So I'm not too concerned about, Andromeda per se. I'm more concerned is EA's and BioWare's focus now on the story aspect of it, and I think that's true. I know it's an optimistic take, and obviously if 4 years later you watch this this podcast, you can like, I told you so, they suck, and fair enough. But I am hopeful. I do think good things can happen. Sorry, what was that, man? Tadros?
Oh yeah, I was just messing around. I hope things get better. Like I would definitely, if it gets better, that's great. I want that. Is it? And do I think it will get better realistically? They have a very good opportunity to. That's why I'm like, yeah, don't go Andromeda immediately. Maybe give a nod, but don't go there immediately. Just focus on what is in the Milky Way, so you don't mix yourself. You don't like get a lot of baggage, and then everything just kind of fumbles over and it gets confusing. Or like people are being like, wait, are we in the Milky Way, or we talk about Andromeda? What happened? What happened in the aftermath? We'll be like, dude, chill out. Choose one thing at a time.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a great point too, and kind of you guys talking about how you want those smaller stories and things, and I think what BioWare should look to is Mass Effect 1. I know a lot of people start with Mass Effect 2. I'm not sure where you guys looked, but you have to remember. I think so too. But you have to remember in Mass Effect 1, it started as an intimate story with Commander Shepard becoming a Spectre, and it grew into this grand conspiracy of like crazy proportions. And that's what I loved so much about Mass Effect, and that's why the first one's my favorite. And that's why I love this idea of the dark matter theory, because I think what you do is kind of like you guys were mentioning. You start the game and it's small. You're in a universe after the aftermath of a cataclysmic event, and you're watching the universe kind of build itself back together. Maybe there's super fanatical anti-AI sex and like it's banned everywhere because of obviously what happened with the Reapers, right? And you see all these like new civilizations being born from, the cycle. And then slowly but surely you start unraveling this grand conspiracy of, maybe the Reapers were on to something else. And it was way deeper than we thought it was. And the second half of the game, after you've had these intimate stories and met these characters, is going into the dark, I guess, space and finding signals from Andromeda that maybe the Scourge, was something a lot bigger than we thought it was. And that way you don't have to bring in all these characters from Andromeda, but you link it, and then suddenly you have this big conspiracy like you did in the first trilogy, and you can go from there. I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I think that could work out very well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think ultimately that's it's also the safe option as well, because you're introducing Mass Effect fans who didn't play Andromeda into Andromeda more or less, but you're kind of excluding the writers and everything else that comes with it. So I think it's a safe option, and I think it's probably the best option for them, to be honest. I think the Mass Effect Andromeda fans obviously might not be too happy with the fact that they don't get to finish the writer stories and whatnot. But I think there's going to be losses taken anyway. So for example, are we all of the opinion that red is canon, or is there blue? Is BioWare going to try to everyone just said
you have dead Reapers. It's like even teasers, like you're having a wreckage, a damaged Citadel, dead Reaper, I think. So, and no one is glowing green. So we're good, thank God. And I think like that. I think that's the issue. Is like, why making the decision where like you have to choose all of them? It's like I knew from the very beginning. It's like they're not gonna make it all canon. It's like that's, and I'll go back to my very beginning. My very first point is like Mass Effect doesn't know what to do with big decisions, like really big decisions, such as killing the Council or keeping or destroying the Collector base. You're like, there's a canon for it anyway. And
see,
like,
I don't even think I don't think it's even that they don't even know what to do with it anymore. I just think it's a budget thing now. If you're going to consider Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, and maybe looking on Andromeda, Mass Effect 1, 2, 3, into a Mass Effect 4 or 5, I just think it's too much. Because
it is too much.
They already have to deal with this question of are the Quarians around? Are the Geth around? And for me, it's going to be completely different from you. So they've kind of written themselves into a corner where they don't have as much leeway to play around with many things. But ultimately, what I do think though is they're gonna have to hurt some feelings here. Red is gonna be canon, and they're gonna make some decisions. For example, I think the Quarrens are still gonna be there. I don't really see a game without the Quarrens around. I think
Geth ethnic cleansing. I'm for this. Yes.
I think the Geth are gone. I don't, but then again, I feel like if you're gonna bring a group back, I think they're the ones that it's somewhat easy to do.
I think so.
Because
Yeah.
of the nature of of what they are.
Well, you
Yeah,
could have
and then-
side quests too, where like maybe there's like some Geth that somehow survives, some sec of them, and then there's a lot of opportunities.
Just kill it, be done.
Yeah.
But in seriousness note, like I did mention, like Project Overlord, where like, oh, it depends on how effective you bring back the Geth, and say a villain tries to exploit Project Overlord or the remnants of it. So if you kill the Geth, like in the Rannoch arc, which is actually my first choice, they're easier to repair. So say Daro Zen, who's obsessed with controlling the Geth, could like find remnants of Project Overlord and tries to bring back the Geth using Project Overlord and controlling them. It's like that's a plot. That's a very good plot. And if you make peace with the Geth and the Geth die from the red ending, it's much harder to bring them back as what they are, because basically the red ending is like we're frying every single Reaper technology. We're basically an EMP against Reaper tech or direct Reaper tech. So like, it's harder to bring back the Geth at an effective range, but we could be hopeful or something like that.
I think there'll be loopholes, and what I will say to Mass Effect fans is, be able to stretch your imagination a bit, because not everything is going to make 100% sense. And it kind of goes back to this question that I was asking multiple different people, and I always used to tell them that for me, as long as you give me the stories, there might be loopholes here and there, but as long as you give me the stories, even right here right now, I'll tell you, like, if you tell me the next Mass Effect game is going to be blue control ending, if you tell me it's going to be synthesis, I'm still going to buy the game.
No.
As long as you can promise me, that I'm going to have these stories, I'm going to have these decisions to make, this Genophage decisions, this Quarren, Rannoch decisions, I'm game. I'm good for it. So I'm willing to take these losses, in terms of, okay, what decision did I make? Oh, I didn't make that decision. I don't really care what decision I made anymore. I've kind of looked at Mass Effect and the trilogy and said, that's just my game, and that's it. But now I'm ready to move on, because I want a Mass Effect game, but I don't need a Mass Effect game to follow what I did for me to enjoy it. If you guys understand what I'm trying to say.
If we're having green ending, I want a green husk as a squad mate right now. He's like sentient. I was like, damn, I used to be a husband. It sucks, dude.
Yeah,
But
I mean, the green ending, it is. I don't see a situation where that happens. I don't see a situation where they actually certify, let's do that, 100%.
Oh yeah, dude.
If they do, I'm still buying the game. Like, Franklin, are you buying the game?
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, dude, the funny thing is, because in my video, I talk, because I like the green ending, because apparently I'm a degenerate.
Before you go on, I remember I was watching a video, and you said, it's the green ending, and I was like, what's this guy talking about? Like, he's lost his mind.
Dude, I got chewed out in the comments. They were like,
video. Let me keep watching it. Go ahead.
I know, dude. It was funny. I thought it was funny. Everyone was like, dude, I thought you were cool until you said that. I hate you now. And I was like, I respect it. It's fine.
This is heresy, but that's all right. That's all right. Continue.
Yeah. I feel like... Yeah, no, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I have a lot of controversial Mass Effect opinions. Like, I think the second one's the worst one, too, by a long shot. It's... Yeah, I get chewed out.
The worst one.
Yeah,
I think the second one... Here's the thing. The second one's plot is like... feels worthless. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot the collectors are there. Shit, and they're one ship, and they want to go to Earth and get a buttload of dreadnoughts. Why are we stopping them again? They're gonna get themselves killed. That's fine.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's... Yeah,
and
it's
like, yeah, it's like Mass Effect 2 again. Like, this is my predominant factors. Like Mass Effect main factor. If it wasn't for the characters, a lot of the plot holes and issues would be very like basically on your face. You'd be like, oh, I'm noticing a lot of bad things here. And that's why I'm like, yeah, no, Mass Effect 3 is probably the worst one, because Mass Effect 3's plots, like the Rannoch arc, the Genophage, feels like these things should have been in Mass Effect 2 instead of Mass Effect 3, because it's like, oh, you're doing these things before the Reaper War to prepare for the Reaper War. In Mass Effect 3, it's like, Rex, you're holding my own people hostage. What the hell? It's like, dude, my people are being killed by the minute. Every minute. And then like you have things like the Citadel DLC, which, you know, was fun, but it's like doesn't fit. It's like,
You see,
oh, we're partnering.
I put a lot of these
Dying,
inconsistencies just to the fact that, like, I don't think they knew exactly what they were even doing, like, story wise.
Yeah.
I think you know, I think at this point in time, I think the dark energy theory was still like a go potentially. So Mass Effect 2, the story just feels different compared to everything else. You're 100% right with that, but I just put that to the writers as opposed to anything else. I don't think they had any grand plan that, okay, the Reapers are going to do this and it's going to be red, blue, and green. I don't think they even knew at that point in time. But Franklin, you were saying about why you chose green, which I disagree, but okay, go ahead. Tell everyone in the chat and tell everyone who's on the panel why you chose green.
yeah. I mean, the reason I like the synthesis ending is because to me, the whole like main theme of the original, or there's a lot of main themes, but one of the biggest main themes of the original trilogy was that there was this everlasting constant divide between organics and synthetics. And I think like the moral of the story was what you learned from the Reapers, and especially when they added more DLCs like the Leviathan DLC, is they showed you that like this is a cycle. This always happens. Like this is something that is destined to always occur. Organics will contest with synthetics after they build them, you know, artificial intelligence. And the problem with the Destroy ending, and also what's the blue ending called? I guess the Control. That's it. Control. Thank you. Yeah. The problem with those endings is you solve the problem, but only momentarily. So if you destroy all the AI, then people are going to outlaw AI. They're all going to be gone. But eventually, organics will come back, and there'll be a new Reaper sentient race that'll try. You know, it doesn't solve the issue that Mass Effect's main theme was presenting. But if you're synthetics, yeah, it might be, hey, you got indoctrinated. They tricked you into combining. But also, it's like because I'm just going to trust BioWare and say that wasn't their intention, since they came out and said that is, regardless of whether that's true. If that's not, then synthesis is the only way to kind of solve the core issue of synthetics and organics always fighting. And even though it's kind of scary, it's the only way that's going to you break the cycle and don't do the same thing, I guess.
Okay, I will. I have many disagreements, but I'll list them a little bit. So my problem is the whole like how Starchild presents the issue. It's like this always happens. AI always overwhelm their creators.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, so Reapers, when the Quarians were attacking the Geth right now in like the Rannoch arc, if it wasn't for the Reaper intervention, the Quarians would have won and the AI issue would have been solved. Basically, we just killed the Geth, but the Reapers basically helped the Geth. Second issue, we make peace with the Geth. The Geth never actually had the intention of destroying the creators. It was a misunderstanding.
Mm.
And the Geth are predominantly isolationists until like Mass Effect 3 kind of toys with that a little bit. But they're predominantly isolationists. People are like, okay, don't mess with the Geth. Geth won't mess with you. And we're good. We're in good terms. So that's like, you can't really challenge the Star Child with this. You can't really tell him, hey, dude, can you, what about those things? It's like, no, I don't care. Here you go, get a cockroach alien. He's gonna eat you. But it's like, that's the issue. With synthesis, it's like, why would anyone suddenly be peaceful? Because I understand you? Not because I understand you means I'm gonna agree. It's like, I can understand a person's thoughts, but I can definitely say like, no, I'm still gonna kill you, or I'm still gonna fight you. Or that. It's like, yeah, that doesn't solve an issue. I'd say the whole like, oh, it's always a cycle that AI always kills each other. It's like, what about alternatives? like Reapers just basically were functioning as the higher beings. Like, we're just gonna monitor you or tell you don't build AIs, and if you build, we're gonna screw you over. Like, what about these alternatives? Which again,
like Legion, right? Kind of like how Legion turns, right? I think it's a really good point, honestly, and I think that's what's great about the original trilogy too, is those ideas are kind of open. Like, I totally see the other side too. I think it can be argued just as well, but like, to me, it's kind of like those moments are fleeting, and I just see the story as more of like, yeah, there's going to be some legions, maybe it could turn out differently, but this is an inevitability. Like there is this conflict, and like you said, I mean, you know, synthesis maybe doesn't even solve anything. It's not like, oh, now we understand each other, there's going to be no conflicts. Like, I don't think it's just some utopia. I just think it's the most interesting ending because it leaves you at a different place than where you started. Whereas the other ones kind of just set you forth in theory to go down the same path.
I would say a little bit. Here's. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna slightly answer that one thing.
No,
Go for it.
There is a Legion and there's a Geth. Like, that's the only synthetic issue, though. That's the only synthetic issue, and like the rest is basically the Krogan and the Genophage, the Rachni, the Turians and humans from the First Contact War, if you want to call it a war. It's pretty short. Like, these were the predominant factors. Most of the issues, most of the conflicts, most of these things were like organic, unorganic, political, non-political, territorial, those things. Like, the only synthetic issue was the Geth, which wasn't necessarily the Geth wants to overthrow their creators, even though they kind of committed genocide. Like,
I see Franklin wants to push back on that real quick, but I'm gonna get you to jump in. What do you think of the synthesis ending?
Well, if I'm being totally honest, I think the developers made that ending with the soft shells in mind. It just feels too perfect, right? And there's always the people that are like, well, you know, we have the destroy ending, but oh no, Edie, you know, I'm so sad now, and everybody's just dead that I liked, and all right, but I choose the control one, but oh no, I die, and there's still probably gonna be war, but you know, they made that ending. I feel like they made that ending the most perfect ending of all. So the people who really are very emotional with people like Edie and all that stuff can get something out of it too. It's like, thank God, everybody's safe and sound, you know, in a world where everything's just so perfect and nothing happens. That's why I kind of dislike it, and I don't see it working that well in the future. It is though interesting to see that everything is just united out of the ass, out of nowhere. And one more thing that I hate about it is that everybody's green, and I just completely despise that.
It seems that's like a main point that everyone hits the fact that, like,
it's like the only different thing is just that everybody's green in the photos, and that's pissing me off like all the time. Like,
I will say something that kind of frustrated me is Edie saying "I am alive." I was like, what? This whole time you weren't? You lied to me. It's like same thing with Legion and Rannoch arc. Is like, oh, we will be alive if we put Reaper. I was like, okay, so I'm killing you now. Just for that.
Listen, we're getting to more inconsistencies, but like, Frank and I gonna go back on the green, because I actually agree with you, Franklin. I just disagree with certain. It's like I agree and disagree. You know, some of the guys made some good points, but I disagree with certain things. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think you guys hit it on the head. It's just I love Edie, so that's why I love synthesis. But no, honestly, Anthony actually had a great point in the chat. He talks about how Protheans fought. That's what I was going to mention, Anthony. So thank you. But Protheans also fought a lot of wars with synthetics, right? And the other thing I want to hit home is, like, this is a cycle that's been going on for millennia. And the thing what I think the best counter argument to that is that's only because the Reapers existed. But the problem is you have to remember, organics, the Leviathans, were there first, right? And I think deep down there's this main theme in Mass Effect is trying to tell you over and over again. It's like, hey, there is this conflict that's not going to work. And I think the Legion thing is interesting because they kind of wanted to give you kind of a string to pull on and say, hey, but look, they can be nice. But I think there's just this inherent conflict that in the Milky Way galaxy, in the Mass Effect universe, right, where these two synthetics and organics are going to fight. And the thing about synthesis is, you're right. I think in a lot of ways it's the easy way out. All my friends live. Everyone's the same now. They all have green eyes. You know, I like the color green, so maybe that's what I like to do. But the thing is, like, I do also think there is that deeper sense of like that is the ending that ties together all of the main themes, and because the entire 3-game trilogy is this, you're slowly learning. Like think about the Rachni, you're slowly learning about all these different, I guess, races and people trying to control each other, and it's like, or you're going into this new era. You're kind of combining, you're synthesizing everything into something different, because you're seeing the Geth and the Quarians. You're seeing when I guess it was DLC, but the Protheans. Your Prothean teammate you learn about and everything, and his history. You see, they were fighting synthetics nonstop as well, and I think it's really hitting home on this idea of like this is something that's always going to happen.
I'll say the problem is like it's contrived. It's like, can you explain further? It's like because you could argue, oh yeah, well, conflict is inevitable, whether organic or synthetic. Like evidently is like, yeah, most of our conflict in this cycle is organic, with the exception of one. The other problem of synthesis is that it's so desperate to make the ending so perfect that it's like, how does this work? It's like, how does synthesis work? How do we suddenly understand each other? Shepard gets like, you get disintegrated in green fart. Here we go. Have a nice day.
No, it's just Wi-Fi.
Just Wi-Fi. Everyone gets free Wi-Fi. There you go.
And there we go.
Everybody gets the password, and everybody's fine.
Everyone gets the Wi-Fi password. Everyone can vent. It's okay now.
The reason why I do agree with Franklin, not because I think the Green Ending, I think you guys have made a perfect reason. That's why the Green Ending just doesn't work. It's too utopia like. It doesn't make sense. It feels very magical. It feels like we're getting to fantasy now as opposed to sci-fi. But what I will say is, there's this argument that, okay, well, Shepard, stopped the Geth and the Quarren War. Well, I can, if I was the Star Child and if Shepard gave me that as an example, I would just respond to him, yeah, that's one situation. Like, we've been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years. The Geth, yeah, okay, they worked out well. They didn't, wipe out whatever it may be. But another synthetic race is going to appear. It's going to be created. And that one is going to be the one that's going to mess everything up. So I think Shepard saying, well, the Geth are fine, it's not good enough for the Star Child that has data dating back from, from the Leviathans.
Yeah.
So that's where I do agree. Ultimately, that if we're following Mass Effect rules, the world that it kind of, if we're trying to be consistent with Mass Effect, I think the red ending is basically telling us that, like, yes, this will happen again. I think when the Star Child says, if you choose red or whatever it may be, organics and synthetics will fight again. Now, the argument is, well, as you were saying, Tydros as well, that all the fights that happened in Mass Effect were primarily organics going at each other. That's very true.
I'll reiterate and say, like, well, that's like basically saying, yeah, conflict is inevitable, be it organic or synthetic. So why are you?
It is, but I believe, and I'll put this question to you guys. When organics and organics fight, yeah, I think they can wipe each other out. But if synthetics and organics are fighting, who do you think wins? I think the Star Child and I think the Leviathans maybe came to the conclusion that if synthetics and organics go to war, just because of the fact that they are synthetic and they have, upgrades and whatever it may be, they will always win, and it will get to a situation where all life in the galaxy will be wiped out. Is that correct?
I don't think so. Primarily because unless organics are like very incompetent, which I say Quarians 300 years ago, maybe, but I don't think it would go to that level unless they're like it's the Reapers. Which is
keep in mind though, the synthetics will always evolve. These are supercomputers.
Yeah, they're supercomputers, but you also have like your own contingency. There's something I took with my neighbor, old neighbor of mine, told me, like, because he took a lot of artificial intelligence. He tells me, like, if you do not have any form of like backup to your AI, then you're incompetent. You must have been an idiot while you're doing it. And I think that's the issue. It's like, oh yeah, there are things like there should have been contingencies. Like with EDI, we have the shackles. with the Geth, they had nothing. They're just like, we're making this thing that will obviously evolve to an AI, and when it evolved to an AI, all we have is a Pikachu surprised face.
Yeah.
Besides that, it's like, conflict is very inevitable. We have weapons that are like very brutal, like nukes and such. Like current nukes are brutal enough that they destroy electronics. So like, if that's the case, like, what is the Reaper's alternative? And my other issue is like, what is the Reaper's alternative? Oh, synthetic overwhelming organics. So you're just doing the cycle. Maybe.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
honestly, one really interesting point too, talking about what was the Reaper's point, and this is kind of, I think I mentioned in the video, but it's coming to me again, is another reason synthesis is so interesting, if that's the ending, is because that means that these Reapers were instructed to kind of like help organics at first, right? That was their prime directive. And they've kind of held on to that, right? They keep killing these cycles, but their end goal is because they're trying to help organics. Otherwise, they would just wipe everyone out. And what's so interesting about synthesis is you have to remember that all these other cycles, the Reapers won. They killed everyone and nothing happened. But in this cycle, at the very end with the Star Child, the organics get to make a choice. And I think the synthesis in a way is kind of like the Reaper saying, we've done our work, we're ready to kind of like put everyone into the next stage of humanity and synthetics and I guess life. Like, we're ready to evolve. And like, I think because you have to remember, they won every war easily. They just crushed everyone, and they could have crushed this cycle as well. It seems like
they should have.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's like they finally were ready, and they said, we think they're ready. It's time. Let's see if they make the choice and we combine. And if they don't, they're going to kill everything, and this cycle will eventually go on until we can rise above. That's how I see it, but it can be seen either way.
I'm on the fence on that one because, like, we basically had, thank God we have a Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah,
That's the kind of problems. Like, everyone won, and from what we've heard, is like, to me, it's like every time I look at Mass Effect 3, it's like Reapers should have killed us all immediately, but like they're not, for contrived reasons that are not explained.
Exactly, and that would explain the synthesis ending in my head. Like, the thing is, you're right. It's kind of a Deus Ex Machina. It's just too easy. It's like, everything got solved. Everything was perfect. It's the perfect ending. But it ties everything together perfectly. It ties the themes together perfectly. Your entire journey makes sense. And then it also explains why they didn't kill everything immediately.
My main focus is like, whenever I write something, it's like, okay, themes. Don't focus on it too much. Make sure the world functions. The world, like, the events make sense. Because like to me, it's like synthesis happened, perfect ending, great. And I'm like, I don't even understand how all this worked. Everyone is so green. What happened? Everyone looks sick. Everyone looks like they want to puke or something, dude. But besides that, like, the issue is with I think we're kind of going in a little circle here. It's like the Reapers don't really elaborate. They just say it always happens. It's like, dude, it's like, but so is every conflict. Why is that so? Why is that so? Like, why is this one big and this one isn't? We're not really presenting.
Sorry to call across your tab. Just Anthony, are you there? You just joined, right?
I'm here. Yeah. What's up?
Perfect, man. I don't know if you've been hearing what we've been talking about. We're talking about different topics, but now the main one is the ending green synthesis.
Oh God! All right.
Kill it if you have to.
Okay, so just some context from my experience, right? I was there when Mass Effect 1 was first released in 2007, which was the era where, you know, Halo 3 was released, Gears of War 1 was released, right? Fantastic fucking year, by the way. And basically, from start to finish, which means when I played Mass Effect 3, I played the original ending, where the entire main cast, the entire crew of the Normandy gets stranded in a backwater world that nobody heard about. They're all just stuck there. All the mass relays are destroyed, and
they're in Brazil.
Yeah, they're in Brazil. No, Brazil is a better place than whatever the fuck they landed on, right?
You know, they crashed in Venezuela or something.
It's like
So-
depression as well. No, our economy.
So since then, like my perspective on the endings is a little bit more unique than others, because my OCD ass was like, okay, tell me, I want to know why they did this, right? I went down the rabbit hole, not of the various like reactions to the developers' decisions. I was like, okay, so what happened? Why the big changes in the writing style between Mass Effects 2 and 3? And come to find out, Casey Hudson and Mac Walters, I think everybody knows this by now, they basically came up with everything just right out of their ass because the original ending got leaked like months before. And there's more to it. I forgot who it was. I think it was Legion's original writer in Mass Effect 2. They replaced his writer in Mass Effect 3. I forgot his name, but he wrote Legion, which means he also wrote the Geth, and he also wrote EDI in Mass Effect 2.
That
And
does explain the retcons. Yeah.
yeah, and his views on synthetics is very, very different from anything I've ever seen in sci-fi. He said he used Star Trek as a negative influence, meaning he didn't want to make just a copy of Data, he didn't want to make just a copy of the Borg. Instead, he compared the way that organics treat synthetics in the same way that how do I frame this without people getting demonetized?
Don't demonetize
The
me,
same
man.
way like racists
Keep
treat
it
each other,
on the low.
maybe?
No, he compared it to slavery. He never liked the idea of the synthetics being used as tools, and it was Casey Hudson. I think it was Casey Hudson's idea. Like, oh, what if Legion is like, and the word that was used was literally obsessed with Shepard. And Legion's writer in Mass Effect 2 was like, that makes absolutely no sense. Why would a synthetic, you know? But he still played that into Legion's character by saying, oh, it's an interest that he has because Shepard basically killed not Legion, but the heretic Geth's god in Sovereign. If you kill a god, of course an entire culture is going to be like interested in learning more about you, right? And low-key wanting to be more like you.
To be fair, it
And-
was a joint
Yeah, well, to be fair, yeah. But I wish I could link the exact article or not even the article. It was either an interview or was him outright saying it straight up in old BioWare forums in Mass Effect, right? And I think it was Legion's writer. I don't know why they changed him in Mass Effect 3, which is why the Geth seem a little bit more reckless and a little bit more, we want to be alive. But the point of the Geth was like, you're already alive, you're just different, right? You're just different.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
I think.
No, I was gonna say like, that's a great insight. I never actually, I always knew from a background perspective that obviously the writers had their own ideas as to, and then they just left, and then as soon as they left, then it's like, okay, fine, we need to reshape this. So a new writer comes in, and then he kind of like shapes it into what he wants. Green is controversial in that sense, and I do feel like maybe out of all the endings, maybe blue and red were the ones they were thinking about, and then they just kind of threw green in there for whatever reason, just to kind of give an option. That's not to diss green per se. It's more to say that for the synthesis ending, I don't think they might have been there, but I don't think they figured out how that actually works. Because as Franklin was saying, in terms of themes, it makes sense, and maybe it's just too happy. But I always say, like, it's not about the ending per se, it's how you get there. And I felt like they skipped scenes ultimately in getting to that conclusion. Because I look at it, and the first time I saw green, I was saying to myself, well, what does that mean? Because I know what control means, I know what destroy means, but I had no idea what synthesis means, and I think that's where they ultimately failed with that option.
Yeah. since this kind of just went all over the place, and I will add with the Geth, was like, I kind of forgot of the fact that they kind of changed the writers for the Geth, and explains why like the Geth are kind of all over the place. Because if you look at the history of the Geth, so like Quarians attacked the Geth, Geth retaliated, and as a result, Geth basically wiped out 99.9% of the entire population, and killing any organic whoever enters for 300 years. So they give us this like insight, like, oh, they're isolationists. They're not necessarily like, hey, we want to kill all organics, but we don't want to deal with organics, period. Right? And then like Mass Effect 2 kind of showed like Mass Effect 2 kind of went like a little bit biased on towards the Geth, which I'm like, okay, fine. We still have that exploration option where like, okay, the Geth are still can be argued that they're still isolationists. They're primarily working with us because of like, you know, the Reaper threat, and like, oh, you killed the heretic's Geth's god. Oh, okay, so I think we should work together. We have mutual benefits.
You know what? I'll cut you off there because I do think we need to close off. It's like 1 hour 15 minutes now. I do think there's space to actually talk about, like, as a separate podcast, to talk about, you know, the Geth as a group of individuals and what we think about that. But yeah, I think we'll close off there, man. It wasn't supposed to be this long. I was thinking it was gonna be 30 minutes. I need to kind of get controls of the podcast in general. But I did really like what you guys were saying, so I kind of wanted to just keep it going. But ultimately, I think that's it. We're done. Franklin, thanks a lot for coming through, man.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having me. That was awesome, guys. I enjoyed talking a lot.
Yeah, I had fun.
I don't know if you guys. I'll probably link you guys.
I know, right?
If you haven't seen it, I mean, he talks about it pretty much. It's not just about, you know, synthesis, but, you know, he kind of like elaborates on why he thinks that's a good option, and I would agree. I just think the execution for was poor, but more importantly, if you like the dark energy, sorry, the dark matter.
I think
Dark matter. Sorry, I don't know why I'm
energy.
saying dark energy. The dark matter theory. Franklin touches on that in his video as well, and it's pretty good. It's an 18-minute long video,
Yeah.
So I don't know how you make
It's a
these
long
long
haul.
videos. I don't know how you do it.
I've seen longer, I'll say that.
Yeah, I just ramble, so it's just me rambling and having to edit the whole thing.
Really nicely put together as well. But do check it out. I'll drop a link as well in the chat for anyone who wants to check it out.
Thanks,
Ultimately, thanks again guys for coming through. Tadros for Con. Anthony's gone. Anthony, thanks for your comments.
Anthony just heated.
Wasn't
I
having
just
it.
wanted to talk crap about synthesis, and that was it. Well, yeah, ultimately, guys, thanks a lot for coming through as well. And Oriel, I mean, he's gone too as well, but really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Until next time.
Nice meeting you guys.
See you, brothers.
Podcast.
See you.